welcome back to my channel. Let me back up. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner, and we're back for another episode of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. This is season 6. This is episode 19, and this is reunion part 3, extended and uncensored. And yeah, I'll be honest with you. This was a better of the reunions, but it still isn't great because Salt Lake City just does not do great reunions. They just don't. I will say who was the winner for this reunion. So, for part 1, Lisa won part 1, Mary won part 2, and Braun won part 3. And the others, they kind of were just there, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of what I got from this. And then, of course, minus the people who are in the hot seat. Meredith, what I got from this takeaway wise, I think Meredith might be done with this show. Based off of how that reunion went and all the things that she did in this reunion, I think she's done. I think she's like, peace out. Just because I think everyone's getting sick of her stuff. And it was even, to me, I saw that even Andy was getting like annoyed with it. So we'll see how next season goes, but I feel like we're going to see a little bit of a cast shakeup next season. I'm not sure who's all going to be there because Whitney, like, why is she there? Heather, like, I feel like there's just a lot that needs to happen to shake things up. And I don't think I've ever said this, but for the first time in a while, because of all the things that were said about Meredith, if Meredith decides to come back, because I think at this point, well, I don't know whose decision is, but if for whatever reason Meredith is back next season, unfortunately, I think she'll stay on the hot seat. And if she does stay on the hot seat, you know who I want them to bring back to help get some answers here? I want Monica back. I hate to say it. I want Monica back. I know a lot of y'all, not y'all, but y'all like to mention how y'all want Jen Shaw back. Jen Shaw's never coming back. She's not good with the network. So that's never going to happen. And if Jen Shaw comes back, I feel like Mary's going to leave. And so that won't work. But Monica, the reason why I kind of want her back, I know I'm kind of skipping ahead, but she could speak to some of the things that were mentioned in this reunion because I've heard this stuff before from Monica, actually. And I think she could call out all these women's hypocrisy, including Lisa and Heather especially. I would just love that. And I'll be curious to see, because we saw in the reunion how much Monica and Mary got along. I feel like Monica and Mary would get along pretty well if she would have been able to stay on the show. So that's just my thoughts. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reunion. I'm not going to hold you. I don't think it's going to be too long of a thing. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be done with it. And I'm sorry. I hate to say this. I'm kind of glad that Salt Lake City's over with. Because that's one less show I need to review. And I am on the fence on whether I want to review Real Housewives of Rhode Island or not. It's a new show, so I don't know. I might not. I don't know. But one thing that I also noticed when I was watching this reunion, sorry, I know I said I was going to get into it, but the other thing that what makes me concerned, I'm not sure when it comes to whether I'm going to review Rhode Island or not, is what makes a lot of these Housewives shows special is each city has its own identity, so it kind of acts as its own cast member. And with Rhode Island, I ain't gonna hold you, I don't know how that's any different than, to me, and this is, sorry, no offense, I'm not sure how that's any different than New Jersey. It could be different than New Jersey. Maybe it's a little bit more like a Massachusetts, but I don't know. I've only been to Rhode Island twice, and it was really just to the airport, and that was it. I'm probably not the right audience. But anyway, enough about that. Let's actually get into, while we're here, this reunion. So the reunion continues where we left off, where Brittany stormed off the stage. She's crying. And Child, I don't even know if she's crying now because the way later on she kind of came back very quickly and just like her mood shifts so quickly. I don't know. I think part of it was she was throwing in the dramatics, but I think she really was hurt by what Meredith said from last episode, which was basically accusing her of being anti-Semitic. And while Brittany was off the stage, Meredith trickled down on it. Like she continued on and said that I think she thinks, according to Meredith, she thinks the reason why Brittany even clashes with her because she does not like her because she is Jewish. She pretty much said it. And at this point, I'm just kind of like, Meredith, you have officially lost me. And I think also too, I think all of them, including production, were like done with her at this point too. Because the way the fourth wall later on in this segment broke, it's insane. I was not expecting that. But yeah, they're sick of her antics. And not in this segment, but later on in this reunion, the fourth wall broke like a lot here. So then, the ladies, Andy asked, like, how do you feel about everyone else having a different reaction to and different story behind the playing, including Mary? And Meredith is still just playing dumb about the whole thing. We've seen this all season, so it's not much anything new, which I'm going to hold you. Part of this part 3, I think that could have been extended in part 2. And then the rest of part 3, we could have maybe had him. This could have been a 2-part reunion. I'll be honest with you. I think, and honestly, if it was a 2-part reunion, I think this would have been a spectacular reunion. I think Salt Lake City is a franchise that suffers because the 3-part reunion format. I think they would benefit more and their reunions would look like it's doing a lot more if they were 2 parts. That's just me. Because if I really break it down, I feel like I would have enjoyed the reunion if you would have cut a lot of the stuff out of there. Like, the fact that we're beating this dead horse about the Meredith of it all, I'm glad we kind of did because later on we got some tea, but it took a long time to get there. Anyway, so then from there, we're talking about, then Lisa kind of tries to deflect and says that, she was hurt prior to the plane ride, how everyone was ganging up on her. And so because she felt like she was, everyone was ganging up on her, she felt she had to basically do everything in her power to make sure that Meredith didn't get that same energy. And so it kind of hurts her heart. And at this point, now it's back to Lisa versus Heather again. And Heather, come next season, you need to have something else to do. I'm so sick of this. Because honestly, what's wild about it is I be rolling my eyes, okay, Lisa, girl. And then as soon as Heather interjects, it makes me be on Lisa's side. Because Heather is just such a know-it-all. And so she really thinks she's in charge of the girls. And she just continued these antics throughout the whole entire reunion. And I was getting beyond sick of her. She's damn near making the reunion somewhat unwatchable. Because the fact that also the other thing is every time a Meredith or Lisa were talking, trying to defend themselves, she just would talk over them the whole entire time, trying to get a moment. That was really Heather in a nutshell when it comes to the whole entire reunion. So we don't need to even talk about her anymore. She didn't even have a segment. That's that on that. And then from there we shift because Heather and Lisa, they're going back and forth again. And then we shift the question back to Whitney. And how does she feel? And basically, why would she basically say what she said and calling Meredith a pill popper? Whitney's already apologized about this during the season. So the fact that we're regurgitating this, I'm like, okay, guys. And I guess that's kind of, at this point of the reunion, I'm kind of just checked out because we're rehashing things that were already settled during the season. And then Mary, and then Andy asked how does she feel about Bronwyn, Mary, and oh, hold on. I'm trying to remember here where we're at. Oh, I think, sorry, I kind of lost my spot. We also then talk about how, and I don't remember if this was this part or later, but Meredith was indeed asked, like, hey, how do you feel about with Bronwyn, Whitney, and Mary talking about how they're worried about you? And Meredith is still trying to say that she felt attacked. And I can see how it could come across that way. But I think once you see that Mary's in the conversation, and I really wish Meredith was allowed to really elaborate, because I think what Meredith would want to say, but she didn't say it because she was never allowed to completely speak because the women keep interrupting her, is that I think she believes the words from Mary. She doesn't. She questions Bronwyn and does not believe anything that Whitney has to say when it comes to her best interest in being worried. And I think at the time, and especially because her and Bronwyn are not in a good place anymore, she questioned Bronwyn's motive. And actually, this came up later on. We'll revisit that in a moment. Anyway, let's go into some of the, like, I would say, like, this is kind of like the speed talk, like kind of, bringing up topics and getting quick answers. Let's get into that segment. So then the first thing that was asked was, Whitney, how are things with you and your company? And that's a wild thing. She had a storyline, but we just didn't care about her storyline because her storyline was basically how her company, like her business failed, and her and Justin are not in a good place. But honestly, I think the reason why no one cares is because her and Justin haven't been in a good place for, like, I think 3 seasons straight. Like, it's been a whole entire thing. And so she basically stated that she did end up getting the rights to her company back, and she's starting from scratch, basically. And it sounds like from what we got from the season, but I don't really remember if we had any clarity, I think she paid off all the debtors and everything, so the whole thing is settled. And then they were asked, like, how do you feel about just her and Justin? Her and Justin are doing better. She no longer blames Justin. She's taking more accountability behind the business failing. And then as she's talking about all this, Mary is over on the couch like this. And to the point where Andy's like, Mary. And Mary like, hey, were you asleep? She's like, no, I was listening. I just had my eyes closed for a second. And then Whitney's like, am I boring you? And Mary's like, oh, no, you're not. And the fact that Mary is such a different person than she was seasons ago. I feel like season 1 or 2, Mary was said, yes, you're boring me to tears. I don't care. But I think Mary really was bored. Mary was us, the audience, because I kind of didn't care about it either. Honestly, the only reason why it got brought up because of Mary's reaction. I would have probably skipped through this if it wasn't for Mary. Anyway, and then the next speed question is Meredith, and how does she feel like working because she's still working with Chloe, her daughter, and then she isn't working with Brooks as much anymore. And then the other question came up about Seth and his comments about him wishing he was pansexual. And Meredith, of course, gave her cookie cutter answer, like, of course, I don't think he meant it, but, it's just, that'll just be a conversation if, like, that's how he feels, So that was kind of her response to that. And then we talk about Heather and her being an empty nester. She does, of course, she loves it, and now she's dating. Did we go more into her dating? Of course not, because that would be personal story. We're never going to get into personal story when it comes to Heather, but yet she thinks she's so transparent. Just in case y'all forgot and are new to this channel, I do not like Heather Gay. Okay, so anytime where I can snatch the wig, I will. Just FYI, because I don't like her. I just don't. Anyway. So then next we kind of then talk about is Electra embracing her Greek heritage, and Angie's like, no, not quite, but she really is trying to get into the Olympics through her horseback riding stuff, because you know she does the equestrian stuff, and we have turned a corner where she does want to visit Greece, so they're visiting Greece next summer. So that's that on that, because of course Electra's still a teenager, and it is what it is. And then we talk about Brittany briefly, and Brittany and Olivia. Also, side note, I will say this. Brittany is definitely treated like extended friend of. I call it extended friend of because it's kind of similar to the Miami girlies, but not quite, because Miami girly friend of stay there the whole entire time. Like they basically are, they're treated like main cast members, even though they're not. Brittany is kind of almost given that treatment with this reunion. Only difference is she wasn't part of part one, but she's, you know, basically stayed the whole rest of the time after this. And it makes sense because she had the storyline. Like she had more of a storyline than most of the cast members on this show. So she deserved to be on the stage. I will say this was kind of a disappointment. We did not get more into her personal story the way I would like to when it comes to Olivia and her daughter Taylor, but we did find out that her Olivia and her relationship has continued to improve. And then this holiday was the first holiday that all three of them, so her other daughter Taylor, actually, they all spent time at the holidays for the first time in a long time. So Brittany is trying to do better as a mother, and she is very transparent about her not being the best mother. She basically says, you know, my kids are amazing. I can't take as much credit as I would like, but they're great kids. She's like, I can only maybe take a very small percentage of that, but they're great kids, and it's great to be able to be in a good place with them. I forgot to mention, so when Mary and Meredith were kind of talking back and forth earlier on, Brittany did come back, and Brittany interrupted them briefly and said, hey, I'm sorry if you feel like what I was doing was anti-Semitic. That's not what my intent was. It's done. It's over. I won't talk about it anymore. And that's why I was just kind of like, were you really crying or no? Because the way she just switched up so quickly, I don't know how much time passed because, of course, this is edited. But it was just like she was like, we're done. And that's what Brittany did when she came back. But we did kind of briefly they tried to go into Meredith versus Mary because there is tension there, and it never really did get addressed, though. Meredith called it out, but Meredith's not wrong. Because the tension kind of started last season, and we really never got into it again. Because Mary, I feel like, Mary and Meredith have grown apart. That's been very obvious. Because it's mainly because Meredith doesn't live in Salt Lake City full time, so she doesn't really hang out with like Meredith outside the show. Whereas with Angie, her and Angie have developed a serious friendship. Like they really are friends, like outside the show, so they hang out all the time. So that has basically made things shift by like a lot. And then before they did in the airplane segment, before we got to like the rapid fire questions, Angie did bring the point back home. She was like, yeah, you know, your behavior still wasn't okay. So that's kind of where we left that. I don't know how I forgot a whole chunk of it. I think I'm just trying to get through this review quickly because I'm kind of over it. Oh, and by the way, for those who are new to the channel, it's my partner in crime. It's Whisper right over there. She is as much part of the channel as I am. And you can tell that it's much warmer in this room now because she's in here. Last time I did a review, I think it was for Potomac, like she was not even in this room because it was chilly. But it's not so bad in here. But anyway, let's move on. So the last rapid question that I forgot to get into is we did get into Lisa and John. And Lisa made herself a victim when it came to a lot of the conversation that had to do with Lisa and John. and which basically irked all the women, and also irked Andy. And Andy was trying to ask follow-up questions and probably to try to get her to own up to like her part in it. But we didn't get anywhere because Heather kept chiming, like all the other women kept chiming in again. Even Mary was chiming in, and I'm sorry, but Mary was kind of getting on my nerves too. I just really wish some of these women would shut up and let some of these women land the plane. And I feel like with a Lisa or a Meredith, the plane will never land without Andy interjecting and kind of somewhat making them land the plane. Otherwise, with the women constantly like chiming in, it comes off as a gang up, especially when Heather chimes in. It always comes off as a gang up whenever Heather chimes in because she's so self-righteous, even though she accuses Lisa of being self-righteous, but really she's the one who's actually extremely self-righteous. It basically doesn't help. And I'm only speaking to that because I'm not a Lisa fan. Don't get twisted. I don't love Lisa, but I understand Lisa because Lisa is a very, very unevolved version of how I was when I was like, probably up until like 24, 25, where vulnerability was a weakness, and she still moves that way. It's really tragic that at her big age she still moves that way, but she definitely does move that way. Whereas today, I'm probably more like a Bronwyn, where my vulnerability is a superpower. You can't really use what I'm saying against me because I already owned it. But that's a new version of me. But Elisa and a person like Elisa and a Meredith, because they're kind of the same people, they're very unevolved when it comes to showing vulnerability, so therefore they don't. Like, it's almost like you basically have to pull it out of them. Which isn't really fair to some of the other women who are being vulnerable on the show, like a Mary and a Bronwyn. It's not fair because they're like basically putting the show on their back. And you kind of saw a little bit of that during this part 3 of why a lot of them are chiming in. And Lisa, as she was trying to open up, she's like, you know what, never mind. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm just going to keep to myself. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So she went back to shutdown mode. And I did write in quotation marks, why are the other women chiming in? Because I did find that annoying. Because as a viewer, it's actually unwatchable when that happens. Because they talk over each other. So it basically amounts to them not getting anywhere. I don't want to watch a whole bunch of like middle-aged women like yelling, which is pretty much what it is. But anyway. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so then next we get to the Bronwyn section. And the Bronwyn section, okay, now we got some action. Now the reunion's picking up. Bronwyn, her segment basically carried this reunion. If it wasn't for Bronwyn's segment, there would be no point to this part 3. I'm not even kidding. Because even though we found out, and we already knew from like the previews that Bronwyn and Todd are separated, we got more out of her outside of that. She put it on the floor. Okay? And I appreciated that so much. I was like, oh my gosh. Bronwyn, that's why I said Bronwyn for me was the clear winner of part 3, because she put it on the floor. So we find out that her dad passed away shortly after the Greek trip. And it was a shock to all of them. Even though they were expecting it, it still was a shock. And I understand that. Like, I have a friend who kind of had a similar situation a couple of years ago. So I get it. And then we talk about, which kind of was a huge thing, was Bronwyn and her mom. And she loves her mom. And honestly, I had, my reviews were kind of harsh on her mom a little bit, but not really. Because throughout the show, we saw that relationship improved. And Bronwyn understands her mom more than we do, the audience. And we kind of got into it, thanks to kind of Heather chiming in a little bit here. So I did appreciate Heather a little bit with this part. She was like, is it the Mormon thing that why we're seeing that push and pull. Because Bronwyn basically describes her relationship with her mom as a push and pull. Like they're good, but they're not. They're good, they're not. Like it can be prickly at times. So without them saying it, a lot of the arguments and a lot of the disagreements is very much related to her mom still being a practicing Mormon. And so she was kind of performing on the camera and saying, hey, I'm still a practicing Mormon. I'm still a good Mormon. I'm still a good Mormon. And that's what we were seeing as the audience. But we would have never known that just because, most of us who are watching the show are not Mormons. So like we would never know that. And also even other forms of Christianity, unless you're kind of in a very strict version of Christianity, you don't really get that, hey, I'm a good Christian. That's like not really a thing so much, which makes Mormonism like its own thing that is very interesting when I see it on TV. But anyway, so what else do we have here? She mentioned she cares for her mom. So the show did some good at the beginning, but then it mortified her mom. We didn't really get into where they're at now today. I'm assuming they're kind of like, I think it's a push and pull. So we'll see what happened there. So it did help improve things because her mom did see how she really does act towards Bronwyn, and it led to some good conversations. But then once everyone started bullying her mom, that's where it kind of became problematic. And and basically because her mom kind of got cyberbullied, quiet as kept. Some of the weirdo fans were cyberbullying her mom, which is wild. Because I think her mom's almost in her 80s, and people who are cyberbullying an 80-something-year-old mom, like 80-something-year-old person, is wild to me. Anyway. So then we get into the Todd. And Bronwyn's breaking down immediately because she's the one who's kind of like, okay, talking about the Todd, where do you want to go with it? She asks Andy, and Andy's like, whatever you want to share. And then that's when she's like, yeah, we're separated. And then she goes really into it. She cuts through the white meat when it comes to like how everything transpired. And it was kind of sad. So it definitely was Bronwyn's choice. We found that out. And are we surprised? No. Todd, from his perspective, thinks that he minimalized pretty much all the things that Bronwyn didn't see as little things, because that's the history. And I love that Lisa chimed in. She's like a typical man. And she's not wrong, because I feel like with us women, and it's not for everyone, but like, I think for us women, we let a lot of things go and little things add up. And with men have like the Men in Black, where everything that's a little thing is its own, like it happened and it is gone. Like it's not like you're not taking notes on it. You're not keeping track of it. As women, we keep track of all that. So it's adding all up. It's like adding up into a tally of like the disrespect and all that. And so that's kind of what it kind of boiled down to when it comes to Bronwyn. She just realized towards the end how she doesn't feel respected in her relationship. And Andy asked, do you think the show's responsible for splitting you guys up? She's like, not really. She thinks it just expedited it. So she basically, and we kind of knew that's how that goes. It expedites things. It doesn't usually, whatever was already messed up is going to be magnified. And that's pretty much what she said. And now let me throw it out here though. From what she was saying, I did not get the way she answered the questions. I was not under the impression that she used the show to get out of this marriage. But does that mean that she's not using this show to get out of this marriage? No. Bronwyn is very, very calculated. And I feel like she's someone who's going to do what works best for her. So she's going to be careful when it comes to her answers. And if she's upfront say that she used the show to get out of her marriage, what does that do for her prenup and like the finance of it all? Exactly. So we also find out that Todd doesn't live, like he moved out of the Utah house. He has a house in New York and he's staying there and she's staying in Utah. So y'all can do what y'all think when it comes to that. But as all this is coming up, all the women are actually fully shocked. The only person who kind of doesn't have any reaction whatsoever is Stepford wife Heather, because it's Heather and I don't even know if she's a human. I'm sorry. I hate to call it out, but like every time we go to Heather, it's just like, she's such a producer that it dehumanizes her. Because instead of being a person on the stage, she's acting like she's a producer. She pretty much is acting like Andy Cohen. And Andy Cohen is showing more emotion when it comes to this segment than Heather is, even. And the reason why I said this is after like Bronwyn pours out her whole entire soul, Heather taps her. She's like, good job. And I'm like, Heather, you really think that these people, or you really think this is just all about the show? Everyone else, this is their lives. And you're like, this is all about the show. It's insufferable to watch. I don't know if y'all caught that, but I caught that. And I was just like, this is so disgusting. Anyway, so back to while this was happening, Whitney was like actually like broke down. It actually, and she opened up. She was like, I'm actually, because we find out that Bronwyn and Whitney they're back to being in a good place, and they apparently have talked to each other about everything's been going on. And so and apparently when they had the talk earlier on, when it comes to the struggles of their marriage, it clearly was a much longer conversation than what we saw. So they have clearly been really close and opening up to each other about that kind of thing. And Whitney says she can identify with Bronwyn, but she's on the opposite side. Like she basically is the Todd in the situation where she feels like she's the F up. And so she breaks down and cries and she storms off the stage. She didn't storm off the stage, but she went to the back briefly. She goes and gives Justin a hug, and Justin's like reassuring her, like, it's okay, I got you, I'm not going anywhere. And then she does eventually come back, and then she just states that, it's hard to put yourself out there and your marriage out there. It can cause a lot of things. And I wish we kind of went a little bit more into it, but we didn't. See, there's a lot of things I'm like, we could have went more into it, made it more interesting, but we kind of just stayed surface when it comes to a lot of this reunion, which is kind of the other reason why I was kind of like, if we're going to do part 3, let's get into it. Because with Whitney, this is her second marriage. I think people forget that. So she also is coming from a place of being a former divorcee, and that being her fault, because that kind of was her fault. Like she cheated, both her and Justin cheated on their spouses with each other, and that's how they got together. And we forget about that. So, and also too, when Whitney's saying she identifies with Todd and being the F up, it makes me wonder, did we miss something with Whitney and Justin? Was there more infidelity that happened here? There's just a lot. I had a lot of questions when Whitney kind of chimed in when it came to a lot of this. But anyway, that's kind of how that ended. Let's move on. So then next, Andy asks Heather and Meredith where they are on their friendship. There's no friendship. And Meredith is just like, yeah, it's too bad. And Heather is just still being like insufferable. And she's like, I wish you would own up to something, which I do kind of agree with Heather when it comes to Meredith owning up to something. It's just the way Heather is just so self-righteous about it, it makes me not be on her side anymore. Like, there's a way to like get to what you want and not sound the way Heather be sounding. And so this somehow turns from them going back and forth and how much they need things to work on, and really Meredith not really owning up to anything, to now this is where Whitney and Mary they all kind of chime in on Meredith for like, girl, you need to own up to something. Like, and then we find out throughout this whole entire season, including the reunion, Meredith has been blaming everything on production. Everything. So instead of owning up to anything, she's blaming it on production. And that causes all the women to freak out and kind of go off on Meredith. And Mary starts crying, which I was kind of confused by that. But I get why, because no, I don't. I don't understand why she started crying. I was confused by that. But all the women are just like, no, why would you do that to production? And I honestly, you know what, I'm gonna hold you. I kind of agree with all the women and then like being on production side, because the show would not be as good as it is without this production team. This production team, the way this is the best Housewives show on TV is because of that production team. And quiet as kept, this production team really has not made any of these women who are on this show look bad. Not that bad. Now, and the reason why I say that is because there's this production team and then there's Truly Original, where we're seeing how that production team did Angel all the way dirty. So pick a side, okay? Meredith, you have a part and you look in the way you look. And I think it's because everyone, including production, is sick of her dodging through things, some antic, like basically her and her semantics, and also her not sharing any personal story. But Heather needs to sit this one out when she tries to do all this, because it's like, Heather, where is your personal story? Whitney can say something about it, and then finally Bronwyn had enough, and Bronwyn and Meredith kind of went back and forth here. Bronwyn can definitely say something about it, because the way she just put it on the floor just a little bit ago, she's just like, why are you above sharing a personal story, but all the rest of us have to do it? And I was just like, and she got her all the way together. And Meredith could not semantic herself out of that. And Lisa, she didn't even chime in. She's like, I can't with Bronwyn. Well, like, Bronwyn's the right one, you know? So that's kind of what happened there, because they ended up going back and forth. And then we kind of got to like the reasoning behind why they're not in a good place anymore. Bronwyn basically says, like, I felt used. I felt like you used me and made me the scapegoat of everything. Like, I was trying to be a friend to you and tell you things in confidence so that you know how to move around this group, so you can maybe take accountability or something. But instead, every chance you got, you threw me under the bus and weaponized everything I said to you. And two things can be true. Do I think that Meredith did that? Yes. But do I think Bronwyn was kind of being messy and trying to play both sides? Absolutely. So Bronwyn, you're not innocent in that. You ate it down when it came to you going against Meredith, because Meredith can't really handle anyone who can actually argue with her. She can't keep up. Actually, most of the women on the show cannot keep up when it comes to Bronwyn. I'm sorry. But yeah. Meredith did eventually apologize to Bronwyn. That's the only apology we got from Meredith was Bronwyn. And it was an actual apology. Everyone else was like that non-apology apology. But with Bronwyn, she got her apology. That was like... And Bronwyn, I hope you use this game tape to move the way you need to move the rest of your life. Because if what we saw on the show was a representative of how your personal relationships are when it comes like your mom, not really your mom, I would say, because her mom, you know, she's of an age. That's his own thing. But with Todd and you moving forward when it comes to dating and stuff like that, anyone comes, you know, hopefully you use that, because the way you stood up for yourself, that was chef's kiss. Loved it. And then towards the end of the reunion, we do get Lisa and Angie. They finally apologize and decide they're going to bury the hatchet. I hope it lasts this time because it really seems like they really do genuinely like each other. They're just a lot alike when it comes to their arguing. Their arguing style is the same, so they just go gutter every time. And so it comes off like crazy, like they're not really friends. And I know some of y'all ain't never been outside before, no offense, or haven't had a lot of experiences, but there are different kind of friends and there are different kind of dynamics how people argue. Will I personally be friends with someone that talks me crazy? No. But some people don't see that as offensive. Some people are okay with that kind of dynamic. And it isn't toxic to them. Because they just talk like that, but they don't take the words to heart. I do, so it would never work for me. But some people don't take the words to heart. They're like, it's anger, it's fine, and you can get it off. But that's how friendship works when it comes to some people. Just for me, it wouldn't. Well, older me, younger me, oh man, the way how me and my best friend, when we would get in arguments, we would say some crazy stuff to each other, and then maybe like a couple hours later after we cooled off, we'd be like, I love you too. I'm so sorry I said all that. I'm so sorry too. It was whatever. But anyway, they did end up patching things up. And then at the very end, Andy wanted everyone to say something positive and what they got out of the show. Everyone said something that was personal to them, except for Heather. Heather made everything about the show. I'm getting sick of her with this. Heather, you're not a producer. It does not say executive producer Heather Gay on this show. Please, I hope next season someone gets her together. I just really need it. I need it for my spirit. And then at the very end, instead of toasting to any drinks, which I'm glad they did, and they actually had baklava, and they all had that. And that's how they toasted. That's how it ended. Yeah, Meredith had a rough go when it came to this reunion. Meredith had a bad time. Lisa's reunion was kind of similar to how it is with her every reunion for the most part. Like, because she knows how to get the legs up off her. Meredith doesn't. And honestly, at this point, everyone's sick of Meredith's antics. And now I'm glad when they broke this fourth wall about talking about the production of it all, because then we actually saw the footage of her saying this. It makes sense now why the women have so much extra vitriol towards her, because it's her kind of jeopardizing their job. You can't keep talking about production to this, production to that, especially since she's the OG of the show. That's not a good look. It's very similar to what Heather did seasons ago, which, I mean, if one of these women were quick with it. If Meredith, I mean, the way Heather was trying to chime in and be self-righteous when it comes to Meredith, I would have called Heather out on how she basically did the same thing and actually almost cost them all their job too. That black eye situation will live rent-free in my head forever. Because that was a liability. And that was really messed up that she did all that. But we're just going to act like that didn't happen. Whatever. But anyway, that does conclude my review for the reunion. How do I feel about the season overall? It was good. It wasn't their best season. They do need a cast shakeup. I need someone to get into Heather. Get into that. Get into it. Lisa, here to stay. Whitney, she's in trouble. I feel like she needs to be demoted to friend of. Meredith, it could be your last season, honestly. Because we're not going to get anything different from her at this point. Mary, of course, here to stay. Angie, here to stay. But Angie, when it came to this reunion, was kind of non-existent. I was like, oh, she's even... The way she kind of faded into the background, which is wild to me. But that kind of was similar to how it was for her this season. other than the Greek trip. If the Greek trip didn't happen, she would have faded into the background. She kind of like was there and then she wasn't anymore. Who else? Did I give her one? Brittany stays friend of. Yeah, I think I got everybody. Oh, Bronwyn. Here to stay, of course. Here to stay. She saved part 3, so she needs to stay for sure. But anyway, that does conclude my review. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you get anything out of the content. It's your girl Sharon, aka the Melanin Nostalgic Runner. And I will see you next time. Bye.